Hey guys, what's up? Shadow Style. Got another random fucking video for you. And as you can see, I'm very kid friendly with my tutorials, right? Anyways, so something I'm gonna talk about today is how I correct the audio. Well, not correct, let's call it more of a cleanup, right? Here's one of Paul's projects I did recently, and the thing with Paul is that he lives in an area where he gets trains every now and then, right? So at first when we started working, he had to stop what he was saying and then wait for the train to pass by. But there are moments where there are deadlines and you can't wait because there could be those long haul trains. Doing some research, I found a way to remove the audio of the train in a simple manner inside of Premiere Pro, right? So this is my quick and easy method of cleaning up audio. So for starters, here's the sound of the train. So you can see it's like a low rumbling. When you're at his place, it sounds louder than that. But again, because he uses mics, the mics are pointing directly at him, at his mouth, right? So in this case, since the train sound is there, but it's more of a background sound, you don't hear it as clearly as you can hear Paul. So the first thing you want to do is go to Windows, go to Audio Track Mixer, and you want this guy here. Now, what I do is I want to try to keep everything organized, so I'm going to rename my layer here. I did a right click, rename, and let's say dialogue. Hopefully I spelled that right, or else I'm a dumbass. Now, you can see down here, pretty much these tracks represent the tracks that we got here, right? As you can see here, I usually have one track for music and one track for sound effects, right? And whatnot. But in this case, I just want to keep it simple for this tutorial, so I'm just going to delete those tracks. But the main important thing about working with this window is that whatever filter I add to this track, it affects this track only. So if I wanted to add another filter to this track, let's just say this is my music track. If I want to add a specific filter for the music, then whatever music track that I added here on the second track is going to be affected by the filters that we add here, right? So in this case, since this is the dialogue track number 1, I want to add filters that only affects dialogue 1. So this is a cool little technique to help you save some time. And right here at the end, we have a master, right? The first thing I do is I always add a limiter. So we go to, just move your cursor over here till you get the drop down menu, click, go down to amplitude and compression, and we go to a hard limiter. Double click on it. And for the most part with Paul's videos, I always set the maximum amplitude to -3. So what that means is any audio peaks that go past -3 is going to get cut off, right? That way your ears are not exploding when he's talking. So this is what I do. So not only that, for the next part where we do some audio correcting, we're going to we kind of need this limiter or else it's going to get too loud, right? I'm just going to delete these tracks just to keep things simple. Okay, so we got the master, right? So that affects every single audio track that you got. But in this case, we only got one, but we want the hard limiter on the master, right? Because when you combine audio, obviously audio on top of audio is going to get louder. So we want the master to be to clip off the audio at -3. So that's what I do. We're going to go to our main dialogue here on track audio 1. I go to the top here, and I'm going to look for filter EQ, Parametric Equalizer. Double click on it, and you get this thing. Now, pretty much this thing, what it does, it shows you the waveform of your audio.
8700K has the lowest power draw listed here.
So I like using this because it gives me more of a visual representation of what's going on, right? When we played the part where there's only the train, you can see this area here, which is the bass area. You get a low rumble because that's basically what the mic picked up, a low rumble of the train, right? Yeah, you can see how it dips because that's mainly what you got, a bunch of low frequencies. Low frequencies, medium frequencies, high frequencies. It's pretty simple, right? I do this regardless. If there's a train or not, I always cut out the low end and the high end because you don't need those frequencies, right? And it just cleans up the audio, and what you want to do is you want to leave some room in the bass and the high end for the music. Most of the frequencies that comes from the voice are more towards the center and a little bit towards the high end, right? But there are certain frequencies that you do not need. Just to show you what I'm talking about, we're going to click here. You're going to have a high pass. go to the gain, I always set it to 48 decibels. And what that does, it creates like a hard cutoff. So what this does is it cuts off like the low end frequencies.
Listed average power draw here, but bear in mind that is a 6-core processor, and
See the difference? And what I'm doing is I'm basically dragging this over to cut out the low end. Yeah, you hear the difference?
here, but bear in mind that is a 6-core processor, and it is, at least in the case of the 1800X and 2700X, being compared to 8-core processors.
Yeah, pretty cool. Simple shit, right? Now, high pass, low pass. Basically, you're cutting out the low frequencies because you only want the high frequencies to pass, right? Now, you're going to cut out the high frequencies because you only want the low frequencies to pass. Simple shit, right? Same thing. I clicked on here for the low pass, drop down menu, 48. Every time I clean up his audio, I'm always adding a high pass and a low pass because there are frequencies on your main dialogue that you do not need. So right now, I'm cutting out all the high frequencies and I'm only going to be around the low frequencies so you can hear the frequencies that you don't need. As you can see, Paul's talking. And there's nothing but rumble here. So as you can hear, pretty much like this whole section right here, we can cut out like around the 200 hertz area. See, all these frequencies we don't need for shit. It's just like rumbling that you get from the train, right? I'm going to do the same thing with the high frequencies. Yeah, I guess you hear that. Just sounds all tingy and crap like that. So these are frequencies on your audio that you get from the mic that you do not need. You can cut these out and it cleans up your audio way better. And again, the reason why you want to cut out these audio frequencies here is because the low end is obviously your bass. The high end is like your treble. Now, when you add music, a lot of the music that we use tends to have like a lot of bass or like a high rhythm pitch or something like that, right? So by cutting out these frequencies, all you're doing is opening up more room for the frequencies to be heard instead of them overlapping each other, and it causes like a muddiness or whatever. So it's a good practice to do this with your audio. So again, I'm going to have the high pass around 200, low pass about 10,000.
TDP actually went up from 95 watts on the 1800X to 105 watts for the 2700X. In my IDA64 stress test, after a 15-minute...
Now, if you feel like you're cutting out too much bass, then obviously just reduce the high pass. But like in this case, since we have a train, I kind of have to find the middle ground between like taking away too much bass and also removing the sound of the train as much as possible.
Drew 11% less power, but since they also increased the clock speeds, the TDP actually went up from 95 watts on the 1800.
All right, so that sounds good to me, right? All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is searching through the frequencies here and finding like the nasty frequencies that like are picked up by the mic. Usually every mic they have like a nasty frequencies that you need to like isolate and reduce. So to do that is, as you can see here, you got like points here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, if you wonder what these guys are up here, pretty much kind of like it reduces and increases the arch of the frequency. So in this case, if I wanted to add more of a high end, I just increase this, but I never mess with that. If anything, just leave that alone, to be honest. Yeah, because the thing is, if you start equalizing the audio way too much, that's when you start getting too much pops and kinds of weird, nasty sounds. So just like with video, you want to get like the best quality from the beginning, right? So if you have bad audio, you can work on it, but there's only so much you can do, right? All right, so the first thing we want to do is pretty much we want to pick up one of these sections, increase it. But as you can see, this arch is too high. So in this case, what I do is we got to like make this arch a lot smaller. So we go to this number that's directly on top of the number that represents this point. And for me, I increase it up to 50. As you can see, we got like a sharp spike here. hopefully you're wearing headphones. I'll lower the volume if it's too much, but I want you to hear like the nasty frequencies that I'm able to search around. So what I do is I grab on the point here, then just like I drag around the audio to find it.
X to 105 watts for the 2700X. In my AIDA64 stress test, after a 15-minute run, both CPUs were topping out just shy of 90.
All right, do you hear that? Like, that's what I'm looking for, like those weird little high-pitched sounds. So, sounds like that. So pretty much, yeah, we gotta like find those like nasty frequencies and then like reduce the audio.
Degrees Celsius. Voltages were peaking at about 1.4 to 1.5 volts even, but those were just peak numbers. As it was running, it was actually...
That's kind of like the highest pitch I could find. So we go back down to our number 3 point section here. Go to the decibels. I go to -3. And then I create like a dip. You could go lower if you want, but -3 works for me. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I should start from 1 to be easier, but okay, we're going to go to number 1, which is right here. Same thing, increase it. We're going to increase this number to 50 just to have a more of a sharper focus location area to find the nasty frequencies, right? Let's hit play.
Tested at 3.5 gigahertz fixed frequency and found it drew 11% less power. But since they also increased the clock speeds, the TDP actually went up from 95 watts on the 1800X to 105 watts for the 2700X. I had a 64 stress test after a 15-minute run. Both CPUs were topping out just shy of 90 degrees Celsius. Voltages were peaking at about 1.4 to 1.5 volts even, but those were just peak numbers. As it was running, it was actually about 1.3 volts. At 3.5 gigahertz fixed frequency and found it drew 11% less power. But since they also increased the clock speeds, the TDP actually went up from 95 watts on the 1800X to 105 watts for the 2700X.
All right, so as you can see, pretty much this number 1 through 5 represents these points here, the bands or whatever you want to call them. This number up here, pretty much the higher it goes, the more you're able to reduce the size of the arch or arc, whatever you want to call this thing, so you can like isolate the frequencies better. And then this number here is a number you want to reduce the frequency by, and this is the position of like the audio spectrum here where it's at. So the good thing by doing this method is you reduce a lot of echo and unnecessary noises and whatnot. So yeah, it cleans up the audio big time, and also it helps reduce hearing fatigue because after a while hitting audio that's not of a good quality, it does strain the ear a while. So it causes, I guess, what is referred to as hearing fatigue. So we want to reduce that, right? So I'm going to go to the beginning. So you can hear how much of the train got reduced.
The 8700K has the lowest listed. The 8700K has the lowest listed average power draw here, but bear in mind that is a 6-core processor, and it is, at least in the case of the 1800X and 2700X, being
I do this all the time. Every time like I do a video for Paul primarily, but for anybody else that has like a mic. At the moment, for some reason, you cannot save these settings. So what I do is I create a master template for all the projects I do for Paul, and like for my main dialogue audio track number 1 here, I'll leave this already set up and ready to go. That way in the next video, pretty much when I load it up, these filters are already here, right? There's other things I do, like I add some compression and treble and whatnot, and I want to maintain the videos as short as possible, and I guess I'll leave that for another video.